Assalamu alaikum and welcome to QGTV chapter study. So we're beginning our foray into QGTV by focusing on chapter studies. And the reason for this is the fact that it is cultural Ramadan, and I hope to celebrate that cultural Ramadan by actually following a 30-day course overview of the Quran. Obviously we can't actually give a meticulous chapter by chapter study, because on the 30th day you literally have to study chapter 78 through chapter 114. So perhaps on that day, that last day of cultural Ramadan, we will just give a thematic progression. What does the Quran talk about from chapter 78 to chapter 114? So that will be a chapter block study. But today we will begin with a chapter study of chapter 1. Chapter 1 is known as al-fatiha, and I would say that most Muslims in the world know this, because from our childhood we were taught to recite this in our daily prayers. It's so well known that it's beyond dispute that it is perhaps the most well known part of the Quran. But today we will look at Fatiha as a whole. Fatiha has 6 verses, and what do these 6 verses actually talk about? The first thing we need to recognize is that Fatiha is right at the beginning of the Quran. Now this perhaps seems a little bit incongruous, because after Fatiha comes some of the largest, or not even some, the largest chapters of the Quran. We have Baqarah 286 verses, Ali Imran 200 verses, An-Nisa 176 verses, Al-Ma'idah 120 verses, and on and on. So the huge chapters are in front, and yet we have tiny little Fatiha right at the head of the Quran. So why is this? Well, in my opinion, it is because Fatiha represents the summation of the Quran. I mean, this is not a lone opinion. There are other people who opine this as well. So this opinion is not original, but I stand by this opinion. I do believe in this. Also because when I read the Quran, I see reflections of Fatiha. What does that mean exactly? Well, I do see that Allah's attributes, for example, Fatiha mentioned Rabbil Alameen, Lord of the worlds, Ar-Rahman, and Ar-Rahim. Some call it the most benevolent and the most merciful, and we'll get into the linguistics a bit later. And the concept of Ad-Din, Maliki Yawmiddin, Ad-Din is all over the Quran. Ibadah, Iyyaka na'budu, Ibadah is also mentioned in the Quran a lot. In fact, I would say in the concordance it's like maybe 10 pages of the concordance. It's pretty huge. So we have all these concepts, and they are peppered throughout the Quran, and perhaps the most fundamental concepts of the Quran are brought together in this tiny little chapter called Fatiha. Oh, by the way, the name Fatiha is not canonical. It was actually given by Muslims. It's not part of the dhikr. So you never recite al-fatiha. You start with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, so on. So I just call it Fatiha for brevity's sake. So what is the overview of Fatiha? Well, the one thing we should notice is that the first 3 verses of Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, praise to Allah, Lord of the worlds, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, the benevolent, the merciful, Maliki Yawmiddin, master of the day of judgment. This is about Allah. And the phrase Alhamdulillah, or praise to Allah, applies to the first, second, and third lines, and that's because Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, and Malik Yawmiddin do not have an actual subject. They only have predicates. Yeah. So what we can see is that Allah is telling us to focus on Allah, because Alhamd is a feeling of great awe, great thankfulness, relief, joy, and this feeling is focused on Allah, who is the Lord of the worlds, who is Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, and who is Malik Yawmiddin. Now this last bit, Malik Yawmiddin, obviously the word ad-din is there. Ad-din connects to the next three verses. How does ad-din connect? Well, we have the next verse, Iyyaka, only to you, na'budu, we serve, wa iyyaka, and only to you, nasta'in, we seek an optimum state rather. So ad-din is about serving Allah and seeking that optimum state. Then it continues and says, ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, guide us whether on or with the sirat al-mustaqim. Sirat al-mustaqim is usually translated as the straight path, but that's not actually accurate, because sirat is already straight path. Mustaqim comes from the word istiqama, which means to be gradually placed in a stable position. So this is what ibadah does. Ibadah places us in that stable position, that position where we cannot be destabilized, cannot be disturbed. So Allah is showing us, through accessing His quality of Rabbil Alameen, Lord of the worlds, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, benevolent and merciful, Malik Yawmiddin, His mastery over the period of ad-din. If we access this and we follow the instructions, which is ibadah, and we achieve that optimum state, then we will have that stability. And Allah continues to say, Sirat al-ladhina an'amta alayhim. This is the path where Allah Himself, an'amta shows that Allah is personally there. Please don't take this blasphemously. When I say Allah is personally there, it means Allah is very near. Because Allah can be referred to in the third person plural, we, first person plural, we, or first person singular, I. But here it's anamta, so it's you in the personal singular form. So Allah is close to us here. So Sirat al-ladhina an'amta is where Allah personally bestows His blessings on us, and this is how we achieve it, by following the Sirat al-Mustaqim. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ. This is the path which is not the path of the path of those on whom is Allah's anger. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, and not the path of those who have been misled. So here we can see that Fatiha as a whole is a summation of what the Quran is really about. The Quran is about us accessing Allah and understanding His most basic aspects, Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. We access His most basic aspects. We practice what He told us, ibadah. Yeah, ibadah is to serve Allah. And that brings us to ad-din, where Allah becomes our king. Then we are on Sirat al-Mustaqim, the path, the straight path which puts us in a stable position, and this is the path on which is Allah's blessings. So it is our most fundamental relationship with Allah. This is what Fatiha is about, and I hope that I've come across clearly. If not, that's what the comment section is for. Please do comment. We welcome all comments and criticisms. Inshallah, tomorrow I will be talking about Al-Baqarah. That's a huge surah right there, so stay tuned, folks. Thank you very much. Bye.